Okay. So we're going to continue, as I said, with the carrot nose. Okay, let's zoom into our pictures. Control plus, zoom in, nice and close. Okay, we're going to recreate the effect of the carrot nose. So I'm just going to delete this layer that I originally had, and I'll redo it so we can see how to do it. Okay, so when it comes to the layers in your layers palette, we obviously want this carrot nose to be on top of the head, right? Because now we're learning about how we overlap our layers, right? So we want the carrot to be on top of the head. So we're going to find the head layer, click on it, and then we're going to create a brand new layer. So let's do that right now. Create a brand new layer. And naturally, we're going to call it carrot nose. So let's rename it right now. Carrot nose. And we're going to save it. Press Control S. Make sure that you're always saving. And we're going to click on the polygon tool, the polygon shape. Remember, it's hidden in the vector shape panel. Normally it's set on rectangle, but it's one of the hidden tools. So click on polygon tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to create, just like it says, a polygon shape to create the nose. But in order to do that, our tutorial has very specific dimensions. So let's see what those are. Okay. The first thing it's telling us to do, once we're on the carrot nose layer and once we selected the polygon tool, it wants us to click on the background. So I want everyone to pay attention to this part, because when I say click on the background, I did not say background layer. Don't get it confused with your background layer. When it says background, does everyone see this black portion of the workspace, right? That's your background. When it says click on the background, click, if you have to zoom out, do it, but click on the background, just like that. And by clicking on the background, it's going to let this little pop-up window appear that says create polygon. Okay, so do that now. Follow along with the next step, unless you already got it. Okay, so then you're good. Okay, so the next step, it's telling us it has specific dimensions. It wants us to put a width of 120 pixels. So let's do that. Just type in 120. And then the height is 50 pixels. And then it has 3 sides. So here's 50. You should put in 3 for the number of sides. And then there's one other feature it wants us to add. And it says select smooth corners, because it wants our carrot nose to be a little rounded. It doesn't want it to be pointed. So there's an option for smooth corners right here. So select smooth corners and click OK. So the question is, where did that carrot nose just pop up? Did anyone spot it? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay. If you're wondering where your carrot nose shape went and you clicked on your background, it showed up on your background. You might see like a very thin outline of it right over here. And the reason that it's blending into the background right now is because the color setting is currently black and your background is black, so it's blending in. But you should be able to locate it right over here. So we need to obviously move the carrot from the background onto the snowman's head. So let's click the move tool, because we're going to move our carrot. So click it. Make sure that you're on the carrot nose layer. And very simply, you're going to move it to the snowman's head. Okay? All right, so we also discussed yesterday that sometimes the tutorials are not as interesting as we can make the images be, right? So first up, we want to up the carrot nose to orange, but also this is kind of small, right? It's kind of small for the snowman's head. So how do we resize it first? Forget about color, but let's make it bigger. What's the keyboard shortcut? I think Amira knows it. No? To resize? We should know this one by heart. Control T. Remember, that's where we get our resize box. So Control T. Do that. And when we go to resize something, What is the key on the keyboard that we have to hold down to make sure that it's stable, that like the dimensions don't change even though we're making it bigger? What do we hold down to make sure it's safe and secure and it doesn't do anything weird on us? The shift key. Good. Hold down the shift key. And let's make it bigger. It's personal preference. You can make it how big you want. And then how do we get rid of that box? What do we have to press? Enter. That's it. Okay. So, Jordan, do me a favor. Jordan. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So, you can position the carrot nose wherever you want it to go on the face. Also, you can angle it. So maybe you don't want it just straight like this. I'm going to press Control T again because I want to actually rotate it. I'm going to angle it up a little bit. I think it looks a little better. Okay. So how do we change the color of the nose? What's the quickest way to do it? Aaron. You got it, my friend. You got it. Okay. So he's correct. We're going to double click, find the carrot nose layer, find the icon. Okay, that's a little box inside the layer. Double click, and your color picker will pop up. And obviously, we want to make it orange for a carrot. Slide to the orange, and then you can pick whatever shade you want. It's up to you. You can find the perfect orange that you like.
Please excuse the interruption. Sure. Is Jacob Loveliner in class?
He's not my student.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. 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 And then once we have that, let's do Control S to save. Okay. Does everyone have their nose? We're good to go? Okay. How did you do, Kevin, with that?
I don't restart with it.
Okay. Did you say you had to restart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything I messed up, and it all turned to a background.
Okay. Okay. All right. How's everyone else doing? Angeles, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. All right, let's move on. Okay. So what do they want us to do next? Okay. Aha. All right. Here's what they want us to do. They want us to change the opacity. They want us to actually make the carrot blend more into the snowman's face. Does everyone see that? Okay. So I guess, and it makes sense because like if the carrot nose is sticking inside the snow, you want it to feel like it's kind of blending into the face like that. So in order to achieve that effect, we're going to use the eraser tool, and we're going to change the tool's opacity to 50%. And then it wants us to choose a brush size of 30 pixels to erase the end of the carrot. So what is opacity? We've heard this word several times, and we've actually worked with opacity. What does that do? And I'd love to hear from those of you at home as well. Remember, you're not silent observers. 5 points to the first person who gets it.
How transparent it is?
Very good, exactly. Okay, transparent something is. So they want you to lower that opacity of the eraser tool to 50% and then a 30 size brush. So let's do that first. Yes?
I think I finished my snowman.
Okay, great. So if you want, you can also add some other decorative details, Raul. You can add to it.
Okay.
And play with some of the effects. That's fine. Okay, so the eraser tool we know is right above the gradient tool. So let's click on the eraser tool first. And remember, when you click on a tool, all of their settings pop up at the top of the panel. And you will see that there is a slider for opacity. Currently, it's at 100%, but we want to make it, what did it say? 50, right? So you could just type in 50. And then what size brush did it want us to use? Yes, it's a 30 size brush. So let's do that over here. Let's change it to 30. Type in 30. And there we go. Okay. So you might see this pop up. it says that it wants us to rasterize the shape before proceeding. That's okay. Click OK. Let me explain what that actually is first, because we do have to rasterize the carrot shape. So what you can do before you even change those brush settings, when you rasterize a shape, what it actually means is it's like flattening it so that you can work with it. So it basically just turns it into pixels. Before it was a vector shape, okay? And it kind of flattens it so it's just pixels that you're working with and you can manipulate it. Does everyone get that? So sometimes it does require that you do that. In this case, that's what happened. So you can go to layer. Okay, do this first before the eraser tool. Layer, rasterize, and then you'll see which one pops up. It might say smart object. It might just say shape. Whichever one pops up, just click on it, and it will rasterize it for you. You'll also notice the icon where the carrot nose is. Before, it had that little, if you look below, the head itself is a rasterized shape. So you see like a little four-cornered box that tells us it's rasterized. I'm sorry, that it's vector. When it's rasterized, you're not going to see anything like that in here. Does everyone see the difference? Do you guys remember that when we did like a tale of two shapes, like at the very, very beginning? Okay. All right. So we have to make sure it's rasterized. Then click on the eraser tool and put your settings in to 50% opacity, 30 size brush. Okay. Once you do that, you should be ready. But I'm actually, and let's zoom in. Nice and close. Now, if I'm using a brush like this, originally, because the nose was smaller, I'm realizing that this brush is actually too small because I made my carrot nose bigger. So in order to make your brush bigger, what's the keyboard shortcut for that? What do you press?
Brackets.
Very good. The right bracket specifically. So if you need to make your brush bigger, go ahead. I'm making mine bigger. I want it to just be nice and smooth when I erase part of the carrot. And that's really it. So you can just kind of click and erase. Oops. Okay. Let me see. You know what also happened? I'm going to undo what I just did because I want you guys to change another setting. So when I do this, even though my opacity is down, did you guys see it's like very hard edged, what I did? That means that the hardness of my brush is way too high. And it is. It's at 100%. Let's make the hardness to 0 instead this time. So it's really soft. So with the hardness at 0, there we go. That's what we want. So if you had that same issue like me, now you know. And then you can kind of just click and click and click until that edge line sort of disappears and until you like the look of it. See, it's good when mistakes happen because it's important to know how to fix it and how to work around the issue. That's just as important as knowing what all the tools do. How to work around the issue is important. There you go. So you should have some sort of effect like this. I'm going to kind of like try to erase a little bit more of the edge of the carrot there so it doesn't look as sharp. And it looks like it's blending into the snowman a little more. Okay, and then I'm going to press save. Okay, how did everyone do with that? How did you do, Aaron? You got it? Was your brush on the soft? Yeah? Mm-hmm.
How do you undo?
Control Z. But if you have to undo further, then Control Alt Z. That'll take you further steps back. But you have to hold them down at the same time. Okay? All right, Amira and Jeff, how are you guys doing? Did you guys get this part? Yeah, what about you, Amira? Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, so beyond carrot noses. Aha. Okay, I'm going to scroll ahead a little bit just so that you can see what we're creating next. And we're going to be creating eyes for our snowman. Okay, so you can see what we're about to do. And we're going to put several effects on these eye shapes. So we're going to do one at a time. Okay. So the first thing that it wants us to do, and this is good to practice, it says we're going to press Control-0 to fit our page in the window. So here's what that means. When we press, and I want everyone to practice this, this is good to know. So you could see that I fully zoomed into my snowman. When we do Control-0, it actually resets your page to fit exactly inside your workspace. So just practice that. That's just good to know. Control-0, you see what it did? It literally reset it. Okay, that's a really good way. So like if you don't want to like zoom out and take time to keep pressing like the minus button to get it just to normal, Control-0 is the shortcut for it. Okay, so we just learned another shortcut. Then it's telling us to select the rounded rectangle and put the following dimensions into it. Okay, we're going to create a brand new layer. We'll come back to what those dimensions are, which we can see here. It's 25 by 25 by 2 pixels. Okay, so on top of the carrot nose, let's make a brand new layer. Let's call this left eye. So we'll use this as the left eye on the snowman. And then we're going to select, they said the rounded rectangle tool, not the regular one, but the rounded because we want softer edges. Okay, click the rounded rectangle tool. And in order to get that pop-up box, do you remember where you have to click? We did the same thing with the carrot. The background, very good. So click on the background, just like that, and your rounded rectangle box will pop up. And let's put in the dimensions. So it says 25 width by 25 height. So let's just type that in. 25 by 25. And then how many pixels does it say? 2. Personally, I have a feeling that's going to be way too small and we're probably going to have to resize it, but we'll see. Yeah, that's very tiny. So now we can zoom in. Try to spot the shape in the background. Once again, it's hard to see because the color is currently black and so is the background. But that's that little teeny tiny bar. I'm going to use my move tool and I'm going to drag it onto my snowman. Yeah, I definitely want my eye to be bigger, no question. And I said it's going to be the left eye, so I'll make it the left eye. And how do I adjust my size? What should I do? Keyboard shortcut. Control-T, very good. Control-T. And when I make it larger, I'm going to hold down the Shift key because I don't want the dimensions that I put in to change, but I just want the size to change. So I'm holding down my Shift key, and this is personal preference. You guys can make this as big as you want it to be. So here's about the size that I'm going to go with. I like that. Okay, so that's the left eye. And you can place it wherever you want it to go, as long as it's on the left-hand side. And I'm going to press Control-S to save my work. If you haven't saved in a while, do it. And let's work on some of the effects that it wants. Okay. All right, did everyone get that? We're good? Okay. So it's funny. It's telling you to rename the layer eye, but ignore that. We're going to be even more specific to make it even more organized for ourselves. That's why we're naming it left eye. Okay, so let's see what it wants us to do. Okay. In this case, it wants us to duplicate the eye. So
That's Roskin.
Uh-huh.
Did you do the eye layer again? I was busy like fixing something else on the snowman.
Sure. Okay. So one more time. Okay. Create a new layer on top of the carrot nose. You're going to name it left eye. And you want your snowman to be zoomed out, and the keyboard shortcut to get it just back to the normal page size is Control-0. Okay? You're going to click on your rounded rectangle tool, just like that. And then you're going to click on your background, similar to what we did for the carrot nose. So we get this pop-up box, and it told us to do, I think it was 25 pixels by 25 by 2, which was kind of small, but we'll start with it. So 25 by 25 by, oh, hold on. Sorry, 1 second. I gotta start that over. I think I selected the wrong rectangle. Okay, make sure it's on rounded rectangle. I picked the regular one. Okay, starting over. Okay, rounded rectangle tool. Then click the background. There we go. So 25 pixels by 25 by 2. And if you zoom into your background, click on the move tool, you'll see that the tiny little rectangle, or in this case it became a square, was in the background, and you couldn't really see it because it was black against black. And then we want to make it bigger, so press Control T, hold down the Shift key so that the evenness doesn't change, but you can make that eye as big as you want it to be. Press Enter, use the move tool to place that eye where you'd like it to go. Okay, did you get that, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so for the next step, we're going to create the right eye. So very simply, all the dimensions, like we wanted to match the left eye. So all we're going to do is duplicate our layer. How do we duplicate the layer? What's the fastest way to do it? How do we duplicate it, Amira? How do you duplicate a layer? You don't know? Okay. Kevin, how do you do it?
Right click on the rectangle.
Okay.
Duplicate the.
That's one way. Does anyone know another way? Okay, Amira, so I hope you're paying attention to this. Okay, so Kevin's correct. There's 2 ways to do it. So we can either right click on the layer, and there's an option that says duplicate layer. We can totally do that and it works. Or you can click and drag your layer to the create new layer icon, and it will create a copy. Okay? All right, so since it created a copy, let's rename the copy right away. Let's call it right eye. Okay. Oh. And my screen just froze. Okay. Yeah, it totally froze. Oh, everything froze. Okay, can everyone at home hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. My screen completely froze, so I can't continue with this right now. Hold on. And it won't even let me exit. Hang on a second. Oh. Yes. Okay. And we're back. And hopefully this is not frozen. Okay, we're good. See, this is why it's so key to save your work, because I really didn't lose much of what I just did. So that was good. Okay, so we're duplicating the layer. So left eye, we can click and drag to the create new layer. Let's rename it right eye this time. Okay, and you're currently not seeing it because when a layer is duplicated, it's sitting exactly on top of the one that you just copied. So that's why you don't see it. So we're going to click and drag. There we go. There's our right eye. And then place your right eye wherever you would like Okay. And click and save once you do that. All right, so now for the next step, it wants us to put in certain effects. Okay, let's just scroll down. Okay, you guys are gonna like these effects. In this case, it is the bevel and emboss effect, and then also contour and texture. So, and then they have specific dimensions that it wants you to choose for that. So first I'm going to show you where to find bevel and emboss. And it's also in the layers panel under effects. So we learned yesterday that the effects panel also holds the inner shadow. Well, the bevel and emboss functions, like you could find it in the same area basically. So here's what we're going to do. We'll start with the left eye, click effects, and then click on bevel and emboss. And let's see what it wants us to select. So, okay, it wants us to select bevel and emboss, contour, and texture. So you'll see under the words bevel and emboss, there's a contour and texture option. So it wants us to click on both. And then it wants us to set the size to 5 pixels and to 2 pixels. So the size, that's to the right, is 5 pixels, and it's already set on 5 pixels. But the slider underneath that says soften, it wanted us to do 2. Okay? And it's also set on, this is an inner bevel. Okay. All right, it looks like mine glitched. Now, normally when you have this setting, it's going to be much smoother, and you shouldn't, well, actually, it's good. Okay, there we go. It was perfect. Control T. If you had like a little weird outline on yours, it's because that layer was selected. Like if I click back on this layer, you're going to see like those little dots or squares like right around the border. That's normal. But if you click off the layer, that will disappear, so it's fine. But now we want to do the same settings for the right eye. So we'll go to Effects and click Bevel and Emboss. Select Contour and then Texture. So when you zoom in, you can see much closer that there's a texture that was added. There's a little edge to it. That's what it did. And then the size is 5, and the softened pixel, like the softened edge, is going to be 2 pixels. So we're making the settings exactly the same. Click OK, and then that should be it. So click Save. Okay. Also, not for nothing, I will just point out, you can play with the size. Like if you want your edge to read like a little bigger, I could make this 10. I think I might actually do that. I actually like the look of the bevel a little better at 10 than 5. I'm going to change it for both. Make that 10. Yeah, that's better. So you guys can play around with the settings too. And let's press save. Okay, I'm going to stop right there today because we have about 2 minutes left.